Well, you may recall that President Cyril Ramaphosa, in fact, said on Monday last week in his weekly newsletter that in the coming days there would be an announcement of new measures to try and reduce load shedding. That, of course, was at the height of the intense load shedding. Now the organisation Solidarity says it's received a letter from the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan asking for the names and details of people who may have the skills our power stations need. At the same time, Solidarity says it wants to get involved in the production of electricity itself. Connie Mulder is the head of the Solidarity Research Institute. Connie, good afternoon to you. Thanks for your time. You received this letter. What is government asking you for?
Stephen, it's actually quite funny. Government is asking us for a list that we've sent them already, I think, 3 or 4 times in 2018, 2019 to help address the energy crisis. We asked our members or ex-members, is there anyone with skills to help generate power? And we got a massive response. It was more than 1,000 people who replied. Several of them were at that point in the Philippines busy building power plants for other governments, saying they worked at Eskom. They're more than willing to come back. We handed this list to government, and then we heard nothing. And now, yesterday, we got a request from Minister Gordhan that said, would we be able to send them that list again? They desperately need skills to get in the generation space more capacity. And we're more than willing to help. I think we're of the opinion we need to keep the power on no matter what. And so we're now busy going through that list, making sure that everyone on that list is still willing and able. And then we'll furnish government with a list of people who can, to some extent, address the skills shortage that Eskom is at the moment feeling, and hopefully improve the energy availability factor of the coal-fired plants.
I imagine some of the people on Solidarity's list were people who maybe left Eskom as Eskom was transforming in the 1990s, perhaps the early 2000s. That was all a long time ago now, I mean 20 years ago. Are those people, are their skills still relevant? Are they still able to do the work?
There are some of those. Several others are just people telling us, I'm a mechanical engineer and I've got extensive knowledge in designing power plants. I've done this in the Philippines. I've done this in Vietnam. I'm more than willing to come and apply my skills back into my home country. So we've got people who the average experience on that list was almost 17 years of experience in the power generation space. It's not just ex-Eskom employees. There are several people who have now qualified who are busy applying their trade elsewhere, and who are more than willing to say, we'll come back and we'll keep it on. Now, this is in lockstep with our members at Eskom, who, in spite of load shedding and in the recent unprotected strike as well, due to severe harm or severe threats of violence to themselves, still went and worked and kept the power on as best they can. I think we just want to keep the power on. We want to get the economy growing, and we want to get people into jobs and off the streets. And if we can help in that way, then we're obviously going to do whatever we can to stabilize Eskom as much as we can. No energy future will not have Eskom in it, and we will need a stable Eskom that still generates power to some extent, at least for the coming decade, until we can transition to better sources.
If the people that you're talking about do have the skills, and I'm not doubting that, I wonder if the equipment they used still works, because the equipment itself is very old.
Hopefully, the catch is the power plants there's only been realistically 2 power plants built with sort of new technology. So these people, even if they were ex-Eskom employees, they would be more than well versed in the existing infrastructure of Eskom. Since the average age of an Eskom power plant is now 41 years, with an expected lifetime of a coal-fired plant, an expected lifetime of 50 years. So we're not worried about a skills mismatch, and even if you've got a slight mismatch, somebody who's been in the power sector, who knows how Eskom operates and transmits power, would be able to pick it up very quickly to get us just to a slightly better reliability factor at least, and to ensure that we're not in stage 6 again.
You also said that you want to get involved, Solidarity wants to get involved in the production of electricity. What do you mean? What are you planning?
Stephen, we've done an in-depth analysis on the future under Eskom, and the answer is it doesn't look bright. It looks quite bleak, actually. If we're stressed about stage 6 being anomalous, if Eskom continues on the way it's continuing, stage 6 will be the norm, and stage 8 will then suddenly be the exception. And ultimately, in 10 years' time, we'll end with very little power in this country. Now, this is due to the simple fact Eskom needs to start decommissioning coal plants. They've reached end of life. So we've looked at examples, specifically international examples. How can we add power up to the grid as quickly as possible? And we're calling for a large-scale explosion of small-scale generation, saying that the answer to South Africa's energy needs lies on the rooftops of hundreds of thousands of South African citizens. It does not lie in one or two big commercial projects anymore. We need to get everyone who wants to generate power to push electrons into the grid so that we can get out of this hole that we've been digging. And that's why we're calling on government to decentralize power generation, at least just enable us to solve this problem. We've now had government-led solutions for 15 years and it has really not worked. It's time to look in the mirror, face facts and say we need to let the private sector loose on this and solve our energy stability crisis. Otherwise, the world is going to pass us by. An economy without energy stability is not going to grow, and then we're going to sit with a deindustrialized country, which no one wants.
So are you suggesting people would be producing electricity for themselves? Would they be doing a microgrid for their neighborhood? Or would they be producing electricity from solar panels on their roof and selling it back into the grid?
Any of those. We're technology agnostic. We looked at the exact example is how Vietnam added 16,000 megawatt of solar power in 2 years, which was by applying a feed-in tariff for specifically commercial, but as well as rooftop solar. And this had a phenomenal impact with, of those 16,000 megawatts that was added in 2 years, 6,000 megawatts of generating capacity was added in 1 month in December 2020. So we can solve this. We've got the skills, we've got the capital. We can do this if government simply allows us. And that's why we're frustrated and we're trying to force open the bottlenecks that's stopping private generation at the moment. Since the announcement last year, June, there's no reason that should be legislatively standing in the way of people feeding back into the grid. If you want generating for yourself, even if you're just pushing back 1 or 2 kilowatts, every single electron that we get onto the grid will help us out of the mess we're in at the moment. And we're of the opinion the hour is very late. There's no more time to not be doing everything we can to solve this crisis, and the only way we're getting out of this is not an ESCOM 2.0. It's no more state projects. This will be decentralized private power generation, be it microgrid, be it wind, be it biomass, be it solar, whatever we can get. We need to get power into this grid so that we can get the economy growing.
I'm not entirely surprised to see that Solidarity disagrees with Gordhan, the Minister of Energy. I would like to ask about Eskom at the moment has proposed that if you have solar power on your roof, you would pay, I think it's 938 Rand a month to still have access to grid electricity. In other words, you would be paying for the backup. How do you feel about that?
No, Stephen, I think we're flabbergasted by this is akin to you showing up at a restaurant, they're telling you, listen, the kitchen is closed, and then they send you a bill because you'd rather eat at home. This just doesn't make any sense. We should be incentivizing small-scale generation. We should not be disincentivizing it. If Eskom cannot generate the energy that the country needs, which is a blatant, obvious fact at the moment, they should not be trying to prevent other people from doing it. So we've already spoken to our legal teams. If this goes through, we will be taking this up on review to the courts. There's no way, given our current energy crisis, that Eskom can justify billing people for not providing power to them, for them providing it for themselves. In fact, that is the direction that we need to move, and we need to move that direction urgently, is getting more people self-reliant, getting people who can, at a large scale, generate on small scale. And we should be encouraging this as much as possible. This flies in the face of solving the crisis, and this will only prolong the energy crisis that we're in at the moment, which has devastating economic impacts on both income, GDP, as well as job losses.
The President said last week on Monday that in the coming days, was the way he described it, there would be an announcement on measures to try and sort out the problem. We haven't seen that announcement. He told the Black Industrialist Conference this morning that they were in consultations with different sectors. Why do you think there's been a delay?
Stephen, there's a lot of vested interests in the power generation space. But regarding the government's will or capability to solve this problem, I think after 15 years we need we come to the conclusion government cannot or will not solve this problem. The reason we're in load shedding at the moment is largely due to political will. We have the capacity to do it in the private sector. We're just not allowing that. And we're frustrated beyond measure with government being stuck in the headlights and then holding us hostage on the tracks until the train hits us. So we're of the opinion government should incentivize and subsidize, but should get out of trying to control the energy space and allow us to trade this commodity as any other commodity should be traded between people who want it, and just allow the private sector to create or sell the product to consumers who want it. We're very worried about the president who's announced a smart city and announced bullet trains, now announcing a major plan for energy and then hinting at an ESCOM 2.0. We've seen several of these plans, and none of them have materialized. They've never been really vested in reality. We'll see whatever comes out at the moment. We're not of the opinion that you need an emergency, a state of emergency for energy. Government already has all the power it needs to solve this. There's no reason to give more power. Just start doing your job. Get out of the way. Let us solve this problem.
You want government to both get out of the way and incentivize. Isn't there a bit of a contradiction there?
Well, no. Well, if you can incentivize, but stop trying to control the process. I think we're referring to the Integrated Resource Plan of 2019, which still puts bid window limits on independent power producers. For some weird reason, we're limiting the amount that we can add to the grid to 2,600 megawatts at a bid window when we're sitting with a 6,000 megawatt shortfall. We also had government trying to steer the emergency procurement process with the RMIPPPPP, which led to the 3 car power ship, Turkey ships that have several irregularities in those tenders. We're of the opinion, allow anyone who wants to generate power to do it. If necessary, incentivize as much as you can, but do not try to control the process and do not try to be in control of the process. It's time to decentralize power generation and get electrons into the grid however we can do it. Let entrepreneurs handle the storage issues, handle peak demands, all of that. It's the one area in South Africa that still works quite efficiently is the private sector, and it's time that we allow the private sector to solve this problem.
Connie Mulder, thank you, head of the Solidarity Research Institute, and of course coming out of the Solidarity Trade Union.